Do I put my name into someone and give it to Tom? Put the open mic.
Give it to Tom when he comes down.
Okay.
Mae Leonard is originally from Limerick and is now living in County Kildare. Writer in schools and libraries, poet and broadcaster, winner of several short story and poetry literary awards, including Scottish International, Francis McManus, Belmont Prize, etc. Publications also include My Home Is There, Thurs and Clancy, Six for Gold. Our new poetry collection, I shouldn't be telling you this, is now going to be launched by Frank Prendergast. Frank Prendergast.
Yes. Well, look, I wish like a support Kahirlik. A Bahas and Gowan or Era or a Metal Show. It's an art audio show here on Tranone evening Tanagov show. It isn't merely conventional politeness that prompts me to say before I deal with this how delighted, how truly delighted I am to be here. It's a good company. I'm looking the intellectuals of Limerick around me here. But in a time of depression, that when we're listening to the arts and being moved by passion and imagination and all the glorious things that keep society going, we never needed poetry more than we do now. And thank you all to those lovely young people. I am thrilled beyond telling to see so many of you coming up here, expressing your thoughts and making the ordinary seem extraordinary. Thank you for that. And can I say a very special word to Dominic Taylor and the Limerick Writers Centre for giving us this resource that we have here. It's so valuable to the city. And especially I see some visitors here, and some of whom read beautiful poems this evening. So before I actually launch this for my lifelong friend, Mae Clancy, I think you'll forgive me, some of you, if I put some context on what this book is about and who the author is. We are now living in Aboriginal Viking territory. This is where we are now. This is the Viking part of Limerick who came here in the 9th century around this place here. And their thing or starting was across the road where the cathedral is now. And buried over there is Ralph Ousley from Castleconnell, 1793, a member of the Royal Irish Academy. Said he had seen a document owned by another Limerick man, Mr. Walker, written in Icelandic, which mentions the Viking merchant Refr, who spent most of his life in Limerick and signed in the year 1010, 1,000 years ago last year. And the funny thing, not a funny thing, an unusual thing, the Vikings that came from Iceland, they weren't marauders, they were merchants. And what attracted them here was a big, big connection between Iceland and Ireland. The gene pool is confirming that every day now. But they came here because they were attracted by red-haired women. So there's still hope for many. But 100 years later, in 1111, Gilbert, who was the Viking Bishop of Limerick, parents and grandparents were Vikings, he convened the Synod of Rathbrazel under the aegis of Donald Moore O'Brien. Nobody knows where Rathbrazel is now. That was in 1111, 900 years ago this year. So we are in Viking Limerick in this part. But Limerick, as many of you will know, I'm saying this largely for the benefit of our visitors, was an O'Brien city. They came in here, the powerful O'Briens, the Dalcashans. With the O'Neills, they were the two most powerful political families in Ireland 1,000 years ago. That's why the Normans couldn't come in here earlier than they did. The O'Briens kept them out. And this leads me to what I'm going to say to you. Mae Leonard, the great genealogist, tells us that the Brehons of the lawmakers for the O'Briens were the Clancy's, Mae Leonard. They are native to this place. They were here before the cathedral or before the Vikings came. And I should say to you that Gilly, the bishop, the Viking bishop, he was also the papal legate at the time. And papal legates generally reside in the capital cities. It wasn't an overall Ireland at that time. But the High King of Ireland was here. And that's where the action was, and that's why he was here. But the Clancys were lawmakers to the O'Briens, the Brehon. And they were very powerful, obviously, people of great influence. And one of the great things in my life that has really impressed me is the confluence between the Béal Idus of tradition that came down from people like Homer. He was the same way. People who gave Homer all his work, they were illiterate, like Peg says, couldn't read nor write, but wonderful storage of memories in their heads. We had the same thing here, and more science is bearing out what came down over the generations. We all know the old proverbs in Irish: Brishan an dochas tre hole van quit, is tresh an dochas nan eluant. Nature is stronger than trade. Whether you're in the Vatican or Westminster Abbey, nature sometimes breaks out. And I find it fascinating to look at the names. Carr, for instance, Deborah Carr, the actor, left-handed, awkward. The Clancy's MacLanaku then, I'm saying this thing, and I'd probably weary some people by saying this, but I can never say it often enough. I never met a Clancy, unbiased though I am, who wasn't bright and sharp and witted and imaginative and of all the good things in society. And this is my second time being asked by a member of that distinguished clan to launch a book for them. Some months ago, I launched the greatest epic that was ever written about the history of the Shannon River and all the fauna and flora and the lore by an abbey fisherman, Jackie Clancy, who, like his uncle John Gage Clancy, had it all and recorded all the lore and the traditions, the names of the flowers and the trees and the river, and gave us the greatest depository of place names that are available in Ireland. And Jackie Clancy's daughter is here with us this evening. That book was launched over in the cathedral, and I urge you, if you can get it, don't be without it, because it's really and truly a huge deposit of knowledge about Limerick and its history and tradition. Which brings me to this evening's book, and this book. I said I was delighted to see the young people coming forward here and putting their thoughts on paper to us. Medieval Irish poetry from the 6th to the 13th century, according to Professor James Carney, is one of the great phenomena of European literature. And what it was a carryover from the Druids. It was the Christianization of Druidic poetry, because poetry was a great means for the Druids of training the memory. Christopher O'Flynn, another great writer from this parish, the most prolific in Irish or English today, tells us that Filiacht, or poetry, is one of the greatest means of training the mind. And any of us, we can still remember the poems we learned at school. And I would say to the people who came here this evening, one of the greatest and the oldest of all the shanocles of proverbs is in Latin. Verbum scriptum manet. Those of you who had the good fortune to be educated by the Christian brothers or the sisters of mercy of the presentation will know that that means that the written word survives. So I endorse you and I urge you to keep that. And this brings me to Mae Clancy, the author of this book. She is a native of this parish, brought on the other side. This is an island. We're on an island here. Seamus O'Canada, of happy and sainted memory, tells us that in the 10th century in the Blasket Sound, a Viking was drowned there, and his birthplace was given as that of High Limerick, H-Y Limerick, the old Irish word for an island. High Brazil, the Isle of the Blessed. Some of you will have read Gerald Griffin's poem, who was born 50 yards behind the sea. So whatever it is in this part of this ancient and revered and worshipful city, I make no apology for saying it must be in the air, the writers that we've produced. Just to know, in English I'm speaking about, not in Irish. There are other well-known Irish writers in Irish in the city. But you have Dennis O'Shaughnessy here, a distinguished member of the community here, Maureen Sparley, Christopher Flynn, Gerald Griffin, who in the courthouse next to us in 1820 recorded the trial of the Colin Bawn and brought it forward as the Collegians, which afterwards finished up in that great opera, the great Irish opera so popular here. Mae Clancy is a part of the purple memories that Mary and I have in our lives together. Going back over 50 years when she was a young girl outside with us in idyllic Cork. Is there any place nearer to heaven in this world than Corbally in high summer, where the Shannon Vikings didn't come here by accident? They were great boat people. The Shannon, 60 miles from the sea, turns the tide turns of Corbally, awash with sand. And they came up there and they built our oldest building, the Laxweir. That's the oldest. The cathedral is the second. But to be in Corbally of a summer evening with the scent of the willow flowers on the river and the sally trees and the plashing of the boats and the sight of the swans and the sight of the sand and all the lovely river bugs that are up. What an idyllic training or university for a writer. And Mae Clancy never forgot her roots. Why should she? This Limenechi Gusmir. She's a Limerick woman to the marrow. And she has never forgotten that. And she's now a byword. Nationally, they know her. And we all rush to whatever parts of the house we're in on Sunday morning to listen to her on the Sunday Massella. This is... Her talents have been recognised, excuse me, in all the awards that she has won. And she was always very talented, a brilliant swimmer and lifesaver with Mary, competed in the life-saving championships years ago and gave that back to where she her adopted home in Nice. But in this, she portrays to us the unsleeping eye and the ear of the artist. She makes the ordinary things seem so extraordinary. She had sainted parents. I knew them well both. Sainted parents, that's not an exaggeration. Many of you here will have remembered that. Her mother's father was the late great Pa O'Connell, was Mayor of Limerick. And I remember being impressed as a young man when in 1958 he conferred the freedom of the city on one of the cardinals, and I was carried away by his excellence. His wife had a shop in Little Barrington Street, which was the fancy name that Frank McCourt lived. And it was to Mae's grandmother that Angela of Angela's Ashes went to buy her goods every week and pay them of a Friday. She reared them out of the shop in Mae Clancy's grandmother. That's another thing, and Mae described that beautifully again. Now, I'm not going to go on, except to say that okay, but I had to do justice to this lady, part of our lives. And I just finish on this. she has some beautiful descriptions here of a baby in a cot looking for attention, of her own mother growing old, Shakespeare, and as you like, or Joseph Campbell striking his mother as well. The wasp, the young monster with his colours and the touchdown, all the similes and all the beautiful imagery in the poems. But I'd urge you to do this, as we always do when we're selling books. There's a shannocle there that says, Ní cohíl na bréfa na broa. Nice quotes on butter and eat pastas. Words is deeds we want to see. I would urge you to buy this book, because if you don't, in a few years, as we so often saw here, they're looking for it and they can't get it. No Limerick library is complete without this. May go follow.
Could you ask for a letter recommendation? I hope, I'm just a little worried about using this microphone. Can you hear me without the microphone? Frankie and I go back, and Mary, so long when we were children out at Corbally. That's why he was referring to Corbally. And their values became our values, and it became our lives, and that's how we lived with their values. And I just adore both of them, and thank you so much, Frankie. Just every time I hear the word Limerick, I'm sort of, my ears are alert, and I just love my Limerick, and I was so lucky to be brought up in the parish. If you know where the Absolute Hotel is now, well, the foyer there was our house. That was our house, and it's very sad for me going in there and you know, just to stand there and remember. But at the same time, I have very, very happy memories. And one morning on the radio, can you hear me over there? One morning on the radio, I heard AA Roadwatch say that Thun Bridge is closed. And this is the picture it conjured up for me. Thun Bridge is closed. Miles away from Limerick, I hear traffic on the Ennis Road is backed up to Caherdavin. At the eastern end, Corbally is busy too, and I follow every line of the road towards the ancient city walls. Elbows on my kitchen table, I cross O'Dwyer Bridge, down into Atlunkard Street, loving the damp smell of the Abbey River. Was that a kingfisher sniping from the Sally Grove? And see the stream of Elver, inches wide, wrinkling homewards along the river bank, all the way in from the Saragossa Sea. On the radio this morning, Roadwatch reports to the world and its mother that Thun Bridge is closed. A goose walks over my grave. The new ring road is on the march, and little homes along the Sandmal, Sheep Street and the Abbey must bow to the power of progress. So I'm reading the sort of the poems with Limerick connections for you, and this is, let me bring you into our house on Saturdays. Now, this poem eventually became a Sunday Miscellany piece, but it started off as a poem, and this is the way the poem went. Saturday lunchtimes. Can you imagine now below at the Absolute Hotel where the little house was? Whisht. My father is singing, a steaming mug of strong tea on the table before him. In his right hand, a thick slice of Tubridy's black-crusted cottage bread, smothered with blackberry jam. His left conducts the radio music. 'Twas down by the glenside, we met an old woman. Whisht, man snaps, eat your food. Ah, plucking your hung nettles, she ne'er saw me coming. Whisht, the neighbours will think you're drunk. I listened a while to the song she was singing. That's Arthur Guinness talking, she says, with a sigh. Glory, oh, glory, oh, then she smiles, shakes her head and joins in. 'Tis 50 long years since I saw the moonbeam wished. Now sometimes I hear them on a summer breeze. That's my cue to join in with Leo Maguire's closing lines. And Walton's last word is, if you feel like singing, do sing an Irish song. I really do love my Limerick, the Limerick of the time when I lived here. And as I say, I have such happy memories. This is September Sunday. Leaving the parish by Matthew Bridge, I sleech along Georgian Limerick, Rutland Street, Patrick Street, up to the Crescent, where well-grassed doctors' doors wear striped suncoats. On the hill of O'Connell Avenue, Micheál O'Hare tumbles out open windows, his unique commentary echoing in the Sunday quiet, to bring armchair fans to the All-Ireland hurling final. And that voice follows me all the way to Laurel Hill, where my knock on the daunting door of the Reparation Convent is answered Deo gratias by a contemplative nun, who leads me down through creaking corridors to the uncomfortable silence of the library. There, another white sister chooses my reading material for me, and I am released to make my way downtown home to the parish with Ben Hur under my arm and Micheál O'Hare ringing in my ears. I'm going to step away from Limerick now and I'm going to take you to Labashida. You know the translation of Labashida? Labashida is a bed of silk. Bed of silk. That's the translation of. Some people say it's Sheehy's bed, but I prefer to think of it as a silk bed. The man from Labashida. The waves of Clonderlaw Bay in his hair. He extends his hand, requesting me to dance in that old-fashioned way, the lights of climbers spotlighting his slight bow, quizzing of eyebrow, and serious eye to eye, until my nod cracks a smile on his honest West Clare face. He leads me a merry dance, gliding on practice sails. I follow awkwardly until, close together, we get it all together around the tiny dance floor. Encouraged by the romance of a smooth Atlantic Ocean and the sultry summer night, he whispers huskily in my ear, "Jace, if I got you into bed, I wouldn't let you out for a year." I brought with me tonight just a little gift, a little piece of County Kildare, one for Frank to say, "For Mil Mahgud." And I am so delighted that he's here, part of my youth, to accept this. It's actually a St. Bridget's cross, and it was made by the nuns, the Brigidine nuns in County Kildare. So there's one for Dominic as well. All my friends and neighbours and new people who are interested in poetry and literature. And maybe in the coming weeks, Sunday Miscellany, because you just might hear me coming up again soon. And there is a little piece about the parish coming up. And it has been recorded, but God only knows when it will be broadcast. Did I want to say? Yes, just to tell you that my beloved daughter Ida did the design for the cover of the book, and she took you'll see the poem in it, why it's called, I shouldn't be telling you this, there is a poem of that name within it, and she did it, the ladies are in a swimming pool, because taking my experience from the swimming I did at Corbally, I went on to do my swimming teachers, and for 35 years I taught swimming in Naas. So now I'm retired because, don't tell anybody, but I'm 70. And I am now concentrating on my literature. So before I die, tonight, the book is normally €12, but the publisher has told me it can be sold for 10 tonight. So before I die, buy the book.